Neighboring countries sending armies to fight off Boko Haram, the biggest terrorist group in Africa, spreading its reach outside its home country of Nigeria as neighboring nations try to figure out how to stop the extremist group. Right now, the international hotspot, Cameroon. We're over on Dan Cutler in New York. Boko Haram releasing some dozens of hostages today as it was being chased by the Cameroon army. And now armies from Chad are heading towards Cameroon, where Boko Haram has crossed over into from their home country of Nigeria. The group has control of much of the northeast part of Nigeria and is now looking at further expansion. The BBC's Emily Buchanan has more now on the latest attacks.
The fight back against Boko Haram. Armoured vehicles, helicopters and around 2,000 Chadian soldiers are mobilised. One of the region's best militaries going to protect neighbouring Cameroon. Chad's president explained why his country was getting involved.
To help both Cameroon and Nigeria face the situation. There are men, women and children dying. We can't remain indifferent to what's happening. That's why we're sending our soldiers.
When the BBC recently visited border villages in northern Cameroon, civilians were terrified and many had already fled. Cameroon's army had lost dozens of men. Now, in their biggest attack yet, Boko Haram has abducted about 80 hostages from this area, many women and children. The Cameroon army has now managed to rescue 24 of them. Young girls have already been the militants' target. Over the border in northern Nigeria, Boko Haram seized 200 girls from a school last April. And the militants have been accelerating their advance in Nigeria. They overran the military post and town of Baga. Satellite pictures showed the extent of the destruction. And over the weekend, a suicide bomber killed 4 people and injured many others at a bus station. Thousands across northern Nigeria have fled the violence. There are presidential elections next month, and these people, who would have been likely to vote against the president, have now lost their right to vote, as well as their homes and livelihood.
When they attacked my village, they killed the men and told the women they were going to convert us. I ran and ran and ran. I stayed in the bush for 3 days with no food or water. I came here with nothing, just myself.
This is a Boko Haram promotional video. There's huge disappointment with the Nigerian government for being slow or unwilling to clamp down on the group. It may now be neighbouring countries that will have to galvanise the forces to stop their advance. Emily Buchanan, BBC News.
And now, for more on this, I want to bring in, from Emily Buchanan's report there, I want to bring in from Reuters, West Africa correspondent Bate Felix in Senegal. I want to ask you, the spread into Cameroon, is this the first time Boko Haram has done this?
No, this is not the first time. What has changed a little bit is the tactics they're using. I don't know if you can remember, what they've been doing in Cameroon is, basically hit and run and, kidnappings. 2 years ago, they kidnapped a French family. That were later released. Last year, it was a group of Chinese experts that were working, doing some construction work in the north of Cameroon. And they also attacked the hometown of Cameroon's Vice Prime Minister mid last year and kidnapped about 18 people who were later released also. What we are seeing now is the intensity and the change of strategy. Since because after after these kidnappings and these sporadic attacks, Cameroon government did beef up their forces up in the north and tried to respond to these attacks. And early this year, the Boko Haram leader released a video warning Cameroon that they are going to face the same fight that Nigeria is facing, and we're seeing a bit of that in the intensity and the recurrence of these attacks.
So what does it say then about Boko Haram's strength and as it's making this way?
They've definitely increased their strength. They've gained more weapons. I was talking to some Cameroonian officials who are complaining that, they seem to have acquired more weapons every time a Nigerian town falls or the Nigerian army abandons the fight. They seem to leave behind weapons which the insurgents later grab, and they've increased their firepower. They seem to have also increased their numbers, and they now control huge part of northern Nigeria, as the report said.
Something that is with this group's characteristic is using young women as suicide bombers as part of their plan, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I mean, it's not the first time though that they've done this. There was reports last year of a 13-year-old who I think was one of the first reports that we had, but I think her device didn't explode. But I mean, now we've seen quite enough. They seem to have increased though, but it's not the first time.
And what was once seen as the problem of Nigeria, the problem is now being viewed differently, correct?
Yes, that is true also. I mean, even within Cameroon, which, for a long time viewed the issue as an internal Nigerian issue that should be dealt with politically, they've sort of changed now. And if you listen to Cameroon's president twice in the past couple of weeks, has called for international support to be able to help the region deal with the issue. They no longer see it as just an internal Nigerian issue, and if left unchecked, it's surely going to spread, far beyond the Nigerian border.
And lastly, I wanted to ask you about this, Bate Felix, about Chad sending in support and sending in troops to Cameroon. Then, have we seen this level of cooperation before in West Africa?
Yeah, I mean, we saw a little bit of it in Mali when Mali was in problems. With the attack of Islamists that occupied northern Mali. We saw, African countries rallied around and sent troops, even though it was the intervention was led by the French. But it is not really the first time we've seen African countries, send troops to help, other countries that are in need.
All right, Reuters West Africa correspondent Bate Felix in Senegal. Thank you so much. Appreciate the insight. You can keep up with the story in real time by downloading the ABC News app, starring the story for exclusive updates on the go. You've been watching the International Hotspot. I'm Dan Kleffler in New York.